Hey, government to private followers. I hope everyone is having a fantastic Wednesday. And if you're in the middle of the U.S., I hope that you are safe from the storms that are currently ripping across that area. A few days ago, I posted a poll about would people like to see how I tailor a resume to a specific job, and if so, what specific jobs that you want to see. So I got a lot of responses, mostly private messages, but I did get a few comments about global security director, travel security, stuff like that. And so I'm going to be doing a few videos over the next couple of days, working my way through different jobs and then showing you how I would tailor it to a specific resume. Now, caveat before we get started, this is the way I do it. There's a lot of different ways to do it. This is just the way that I do it, and this is the way that I teach my clients how to do it. Every job description is different. Everything has different requirements, and job titles are super inconsistent across the private sector. So a director at one place may be a senior manager somewhere else, may be a specialist. It doesn't matter. What matters is, what do they want you to do? What is the scope of the job duties? What's the complexity, and what's the compensation? That is ultimately what matters, not necessarily what your job title is. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so I picked this one from LinkedIn. It's a job with Applied Materials in Austin as the director of their GSOC, or their Global Security Operations Center. When you see a job on LinkedIn or anywhere else, the first thing that you want to do is click apply and go directly to the company website, because that has everything on there. Sometimes LinkedIn doesn't do a great job of parsing that information. So when you're looking at a job description, just remember that every job description is different, which makes it so frustrating in the private sector. But usually, job descriptions consist of minimum requirements, preferred requirements, and day-to-day job responsibilities. This one does not. And so you kind of have to read between the lines a little bit and try to figure out what they're really looking for. So first, we have this little background. We have key responsibilities, and then we have these skills that they want the successful candidate to have. All that mentions from a minimum requirement experience is a bachelor's degree and 10 to 15 years of experience. Okay. Thankfully, AMAT has the salary range down here, which is nice. They give you relocation assistance. They tell you that you'll be traveling 20% of the time on average. Great. So if you have a bachelor's degree and you already have it reflected on your resume, you don't need to do anything with that. Check the box. 10 to 15 years of experience. Okay, so let's go up here. The only other place I see 10 to 15 years of experience is right here. So 10 to 15 years of experience in a similar role within a corporate, government, or military security related organization. So if you're coming out of military, if you're coming out of law enforcement, if you're coming out of the federal government, if you're coming out of some other public sector role, that qualifies. So let's look at the resume real quick. This is the resume that I use for myself. It's also the one that I use for all of my clients because it's easy to read, it's concise, it's simple, etc. So the stuff here at the top: name, certifications, location, phone number, email, LinkedIn URL, keywords. Here's the job title of the role that you're applying for, and then areas of expertise, basically the keywords from each job description, and then professional experience, what you've done, education, certifications, and so on. You'll see right here I have professional highlights. So this is what I do in lieu of putting a summary or an objective, because honestly, I think those are worthless. And I say that they're worthless because everyone says the same thing. I'm a hard charger. I'm a hard worker. I'm a team player. No one cares. And if that rubs you the wrong way, I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, I want to see what separates you from everyone else. And it's not that you're a hard worker. Show me that through your measurable metrics and your work experience. So what I do here is, once I get done tailoring the professional experience right here, then I pick 2 to 3 hard-hitting, measurable bullet points that match the job description, and I copy and paste them right here under professional highlights, with one sole exception, which we're going to talk about now. If the job description is asking you to meet some arbitrary number of years of experience, I don't want people to have to do math. when they look at my resume. I don't want them to have to add up, okay, he had 2 years here, he had 3 years here, which ultimately results in X. I want them to see right off the bat, hey, he has X number of years of experience doing this. So if you're coming out of federal law enforcement, you're coming out of the government, whatever the case may be, you can put the first bullet point under professional highlights as, let's just say 17 years of experience in executive law enforcement leadership. Something like that. You're giving them exactly how many years of experience you have, and you're defining what that experience consists of. So it could be like this: 17 years of experience in executive law enforcement leadership. Okay? So this role is most likely a executive role, it's a director level role. So you want to talk about what from your background means that you're in a similarly sized role. Is it your direct reports? Is it your budget? Is it the scope of your remit, etc.? So let's start walking through this. We're going to focus on business expertise, leadership, and experience and skills before we go up to day-to-day job responsibilities. Okay, here we go. Project management and budgeting experience for small to large-scale projects. Think about it this way. Most of you guys, and I know this because I talk to a lot of you, are submitting your master resume for every single job. Basically, you're sending everything you've ever done. The problem with that is you're forcing whoever's on the other end to read through all of your experience and basically figure out what's important versus what's not. What I suggest that you do is that you tailor all of your jobs, or the jobs that are at least relevant, directly to the job description, meaning this. Second bullet point, project management and budgeting experience for small to large scale projects. First question I'm going to ask is, for this bullet point, did I do any of this at TD Bank? And so if I did, I'm going to talk about it. I'm not just going to copy and paste it. I'm going to say, managed $30 million in spend across 10 technology projects, and it also talks about budgeting experience and spearheaded the management of $45 million across multiple buckets. Something like that. You can even break it down into 2 sentences if you want to. What we're trying to do is show an example that meets the bullet point of what they're looking for. They were super generic and vague. They were looking for PM and budget experience for small to large scale projects. You can even do something like this. You could say, managed 15 enterprise projects totaling $150 million in spend with 30 average stakeholders, meeting each on time and under budget while utilizing the agile methodology. Something like that. You're giving them an example from your background that meets one of the bullet points. Now you take that same bullet point, project management and budgeting experience for small to large scale projects, and you keep going down the list. Did I do that at Expedia Group? If yes, here's an example. If no, move on to the next one. And so this is what you're doing for every bullet point for the most part. Now, if it says like, hey, you have to drive from point A to point B, you don't need to put that on a resume. But you kind of have to read between the lines here and say, okay, strong IT and systems architecture knowledge. What am I going to say about that? Okay, you could talk about, in lieu of certifications that you already have listed down below, you could say something along the lines of 15 or more years of experience engaging Secure, Linnell, various IT systems, and you could talk about, did you oversee them? Did you maintain them? Did you repair them? Were you responsible for application development? You have to give people an example of what IT and systems architecture knowledge you have. It's not enough to just say that you have it. You have to provide an example that makes sense. So again, you're doing that for every single job down the list. Let's move on down to another one. Model sound judgment and effective time management skills. Okay. Time management, super important for every single role, especially at the executive level. All these initiatives, all these projects, how do we ensure that we're keeping track of it? So talk about how you organize your time. Talk about the platforms and the tools or your own little idiosyncrasies that allow you to manage multiple competing priorities simultaneously. How do you model sound judgment in the workplace? Give an example of how you've done that in the past, and utilize some of the terminology so the recruiter or whoever's reviewing it knows, oh, he's talking about this bullet point. So you could say something along the lines of modeled sound judgment by inheriting X problem, implementing X solution, resulting in X result. Or utilized effective time management skills by inheriting a inefficient process and revamping it, saving an estimated 500 hours annually through A, B, C, and D. Again, examples really help show people the context of what you're trying to get across and how you meet these relatively generic bullet points. So, available to respond to off-hours emergency notifications. You don't necessarily need to put that in a resume. That's kind of like a given, I'm sure when you go through the process, they're going to ask you a question. Are you available to work outside normal business hours? Yes. Check. Okay. Experience. Advanced understanding of workplace violence and related cases, issues, incidents. Did you ever conduct investigations into workplace violence? If you're coming out of the corporate world, have you used NavX or some other platform for ethics and compliance investigations? If you're a member of a behavioral threat assessment team, have you ever done threat assessments? What methodology like Waiver 21 did you use? Give people an example of your level of experience with workplace violence prevention and your level of experience with working cases, issues, incidents. Again, you're applying each bullet point on this job description to each employer that you have. So people are getting a holistic idea of the experience that you have, but also how it's tailored to each organization. Once you get done with experience, then you can jump back up to key responsibilities and you can read through there and say, okay, one of my jobs is to create SLAs and KPIs around intelligence gathering, incident management, and security service delivery. Okay, let me talk about how I've utilized KPIs or SLAs or created them in my past roles. So with TD Bank, I could say something along the lines of, I created 5 KPIs for exercise, design, and delivery in alignment with industry best practices. With Expedia Group, I could say created 15 different KPIs for how we tracked A, B, C, and D. Being able to say that you're already familiar with this and this is what you've done, either creating them, maintaining them, making sure that your statistics are being tracked in an efficient manner than being reported up the chain of command is really, really important. So assisting in the development of new processes and procedures. Okay, well, with Expedia Group, I could say created 15 SOPs and policies around X. If you've been in the corporate world, you most likely have created SOPs, policies, and procedures, or at least modified them. In the public sector, depending on your job scope, probably not so much, but it's really good experience. And so at the end of the day, your resume is usually people's first impression of why you're a good fit for the role. And if you're not providing examples, if you're not measuring your metrics, meaning if they're asking for budget experience and you're not putting what kind of budget experience you have, like managed a $50,000 training budget, managed a multi-million-dollar CapEx and OpEx budget, manage this. You're not giving any people any context as to the level of scope and complexity that you have managed. If people just want to read something generic, they're going to read their own job description. Okay? You want to say, here's what separates me from everybody else. Yes, I may be competing as a 1811 with other 1811s, but are they going into the level of detail that I am? You know, if I'm overseeing a GSOC, have I done this before? Is this something that I could quickly hit the ground running on, or is this something that I would have to gradually ramp up to? That's why you want to go through the job description and say, okay, what examples from my roles can I put in here that would enable the reader to say, I really like their experience. They're giving me some really succinct and concise examples of how they measure up. I think I want to move this person forward to an interview, versus them saying, you know what, I really have no idea what this person does. Or they've given me a 5-page resume and I'm not going to go through 5 pages trying to figure out what's important versus what's not. So do us all a favor. Don't waste your time. Don't waste the time of your reader, and be concise and succinct in how you are organizing your information. I hope this was super impactful and helpful. If you have any questions, please reach out and let me know. Ultimately, all the information from your experience lives in your head. Yes, having a master resume is super important for putting everything on paper, but you should be able to go through all these bullet points and know exactly how they align to each job that you've held. And so when I'm tailoring a resume, it takes me a max of 30 minutes. Depending on how long it is and how detailed I have to be. So if you have any questions, if you're struggling, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will endeavor to answer your questions to the best of my ability. I hope this was valuable. If it was, please leave me a comment, send me a message, let me know. If it helps one person, great. And I hope everyone has a really, really fantastic day. Thank y'all.